Hello, aspirants. Welcome back to our next lecture of Insights Daily Quiz. People who are new to this series, please watch our introduction video to know what exactly this Insights Daily Quiz series is about. So, without any delay, let's get started. Let us start with the first topic of today's session, which is about inner line permit. So, inner line permit is a permission for Indian citizens from other areas. If the Indian citizens from other areas want to stay in certain areas which are tagged or categorized under this inner line permit, they require permission to stay in this area for certain period. So this concept originates from Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act 1873, and presently it is being enforced in Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, and certain parts of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, and also Sikkim. Fine. So, having discussed about this concept, let us solve a question over this concept. Consider the following statements regarding inner line permit. An inner line permit is a document that allows an Indian citizen to visit or stay in a state that is protected under ILP system. Yes, this is right. The concept originates from Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act 1873. Yes. And then an inner line permit is required for certain parts of Leh district in the Ladakh. Yes, this is right. It present only, and this makes the statement extreme. Only Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur are protected by the ILP system. As I said you, there are certain parts of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, and also Sikkim are protected under this ILP system. So from that, the statement 4 becomes wrong. So statement 1, 2, 3 are right. So our option is D. You can just give one reading about these places. These places are of Jammu Kashmir which requires or which are protected under ILP system. Now let's move on to our next topic. Let us solve this question without any pre-discussion. Coronavirus infections produce short and brief immunity, leaving a chance of reinfection. Yes, this is right. Major problem with vaccine protection of COVID-19 is the genetic alteration which the virus undergoes. Yes, this is right. There are reports that severity of COVID-19 depends on pollution levels in that area. First, let us see what are the options we can eliminate if we consider that statement 1 and 2 are right. So we can eliminate option B and option C. Fine. So why the statement 3 is right? Because high pollution levels will weaken the pulmonary system or the lungs of the individual, so which makes them vulnerable to this coronavirus. Fine. So this makes our answer to be option D. Older people and people with other medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease are more vulnerable to this COVID-19. And a study in China has proven that there is a significant relationship between the air pollution and COVID-19 infection. And the incidence of COVID-19 mortality was highest in the regions that exceeded the regulatory limits of atmospheric pollutants. Fine. So from this, we can obtain the relationship between the pollution levels and the impact of COVID-19. So our next topic is about defense expenditure of India. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute report says that India remained world's second largest arms importer during the period 2015 to 19. In its annual report of Trends in the International Arm Transfer 2019 report, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute stated that world's top 5 arm importers during this 5-year period 2015 to 2019 are Saudi Arabia, India, Egypt, Australia, and China. Together, these 5 countries accounted for 36% of all world imports, and Russia is the largest supplier of India. However, the imports from Russia has declined from 72% to 56%. Why is that so? It is because of CAATSA policy of USA. So USA was targeting or imposing sanctions on the countries which is making deals with Russia and Iran through its CAATSA. Now, what is this CAATSA means? Countering American adversaries through Sanctions Act. So you can state it as a part of Indian foreign policy, like decrease in the Russian imports from 72% to 56% in the Indian weapons market, does it reflect that Indian inclination to the USA? Because is it becoming vulnerable to this CATS Act? So you can think in this way. And also you can use this report or defense expenditure of the government when you are talking about the human development indicators. On one side, we are the second largest importer of arms, but on the other side, we are doing very bad in the human development indicators, be it poverty, be it education. Fine. So this is how you are supposed to read in an integrated manner. While you are reading about the trillions, you are supposed to get the points for answering the mains questions also. Here is the distribution of India's defense expenditure. Overall, India's defense expenditure constitutes 2.1% of India's GDP for 2020-21, among which more than 30% is distributed or allocated to the salaries and 28% is allocated to pensions. Fine. So having discussed about this topic, now let's solve a question over this. Consider the following statements. Which of the above statements are incorrect? India remained the world's largest arm importer during the period 2015 to 2019. No, this is wrong. India is the second largest arms importer. At present, government spends more than half of its defense budget on salaries and pensions. Yes, on salaries it is 30%. And on pensions, it is more than 28%. So together, it makes up more than half of its defense budget. So as the question is about incorrect statement, our answer is statement 1, which is option A. Let us have a look at the sectors in which FDI is not allowed. FDI is nothing but foreign direct investment. So this is not allowed in certain sectors of Indian economy, which includes atomic energy generation, cigarettes, and any tobacco-related industries, lotteries, chit funds, agricultural and plantation activities. But this is not exactly a blanket ban. However, there are exceptions in it. Fine, no blanket ban over this sector, agricultural and plantation activities. And similar way, housing and real estate, trading in the transferable development rights, and gambling and betting businesses. So in all these sectors, FDI is limited. So our next question is, in India, the sectors where FDI is not allowed. Investment in the chit funds, yes, FDI is not allowed in it. Tobacco industry, yes. Agricultural or plantation activities. The statement says all agricultural and plantation activities. As I quoted it before, there is no such blanket ban on this. So this makes the statement 3 wrong. So from this, we can eliminate option A and option D. And yes, from the list we have discussed, satellite and its associated activities are not included in the list. So statement 4 is eliminated. From that, we can conclude our answer as option B. Now let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic is about State Disaster Response Fund. So State Disaster Response Fund, SDRF, is constituted by each state under the provisions of Disaster Management Act 2005. And central government contributes 75% of SDRF for general category states, whereas for the special category states, the central government contributes 90% of the funds. The State Executive Committee, headed by its CS, which is Chief Secretary, is authorized to decide on all the matters relating to the financing of relief expenditure from this SDRF. When certain disasters occur in particular to the state, but they are not included in the list of disasters of the Ministry of Home Affairs subject. In that case, the state government has a power to declare that disaster as a local disaster and use 10% of these funds to provide immediate relief to the victims of that natural disaster. Fine. So SDRF is constituted by each state under DM Act, Disaster Management Act 2005, and central government contributes 75% of SDRF for general category, whereas for special category, it is 90%. So that will be headed by State Executive Committee, which is chaired by Chief Secretary. And when the disasters, which is particular to the state, is not included in the list of disasters created by Ministry of Home Affairs, in that circumstances, the state has a power to declare that disaster as a local disaster and utilize 10% of these funds to provide immediate relief to the victims. Fine. So this is about the State Disaster Response Fund. Now let us solve a question over this concept. Consider the following statements regarding State Disaster Response Fund. Now the question is about incorrect statements. Let us start with the statement 3. A state government may use funds available under STRF for providing immediate relief to the victims of natural disaster that may consider to be disasters within local context, which means local disaster. Yes, as we have discussed, the states can use 10% of the funds to deal with this local disaster. So from that, our statement 3 becomes right, and option A and option B will be eliminated. Next comes the statement 2. The central government contributes 50% to the STRF. We are supposed to deal with the incorrect statements, right? My bad. So statement 3 is right. In that sense, option C and option D is eliminated. So by default, statement 1 becomes incorrect statement. But before that, let us check this statement 2. The central government contributes 50% to the STRF and the remaining 50% is provided from the state government. No, this is wrong. So what we have discussed, central government contributes 75% to the STRF, right? So from that, statement 2 is an incorrect statement. Let us look at statement 1. STRF was constituted based on the recommendations of 14th Finance Commission. No, STRF was formed based on the recommendations of 13th FC, 13th Finance Commission. So from this, we can conclude our answer as option B. Fine. So now let's move on to our next concept. Our next concept is about government securities. So government security is a tradable instrument issued by the central government or the state government. They can be of short term, which are called treasury bills, and also long term. In the long term, if they are issued for a long term, then they are called government bonds or dated securities. Central government can issue both short term, which means treasury bills, or also long-term dated securities. Whereas the state government can issue only the long-term instruments, which means the dated securities, which are called state development loans. So state government cannot issue the treasury bills. They can issue only the dated securities, which are called state development loans. Treasury bills or the T-bills, these are money market instruments or the short-term debt instruments issued by the government of India. Detailed participation in these government securities has been allowed since many years, but there are not many takers under this category. Fine. Consider the following statements regarding government securities and treasury bills, and we are supposed to find out the incorrect statements. In India, central government issues both treasury bills and the bonds or dated securities. Why? State governments issues only bonds or dated securities, which are called state development loans. Yes, this is right. Which means this is not an incorrect statement, this is a correct statement. Statement 2 is they are not available for small and retail investors. No, this is wrong. As we have discussed since many years, the treasury bills are offered to the retail sectors, but they are not showing much interest towards this. Fine. So from this, we can conclude our answer to be option B. Now let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic is about sickle senna, which is an edible weed. It fills nearly every vacant plot, roadside, wasteland, and river bank in one's neighborhood as soon as the rains arrive. So people ignore it. People consider it as a weed. But in certain states of Maharashtra, such as Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, certain communities of these states consider sickle senna as an excellent source of food and nutrition. And they call it locally as with different names, Chakunda, Chakwad, Chakod, Chakra Madda Sag, Tagrai, and etc. Pardon me if I'm pronouncing any of these regional specific names in a wrong way. So this is a direct question from whatever we have discussed. Sickle senna, sometimes seen in the news, is what? It is an edible wheat. Without any pre-discussion, let us try to solve this polity-based question. Disqualification from contesting the elections. Mind this word, from contesting the elections. When a person is convicted under Prevention of Corruption Act 1988 is quite often seen in the news. Who among the following is empowered to remove the disqualification? I mean, to remove this person under this category. So who is empowered? So we are supposed to highlight this word, which is from contesting the elections. So it is not the role of President of India. President of India comes into the picture when a person is elected as certain MP. Fine. Or if governor comes into a picture if a person is elected as an MLA. So this is wrong. Chief Election Commissioner alone. No, as we know that the Election Commission works on the principle of majority. Fine. Parliaments for MPs or state legislature assembly for MLAs. No, this is not true. This is true under the 10th schedule, anti-defection law, not in this case. As it is about from contesting the elections, the power lies with Election Commission of India. Fine. So now let's have a look at the concept related to this. So it is Section 11 of Representation of People's Act will provide the Election Commission of India with powers to disqualify the candidate from contesting the elections in certain peculiar circumstances. Our next topic is about definition of farmer. The National Policy for Farmers, which was drafted by National Commission of Farmers headed by M.S. Swaminathan, has given a strict definition of the term farmer. So what does term farmer includes, which means who are included in the definition of farmer? Any person who is actively engaged in the economic activity of growing crops or any other primary agricultural commodities, and also all agricultural operational holders, cultivators, agricultural laborers, sharecroppers, tenants, poultry and livestock rearers, fishers, beekeepers, gardeners, pastoralists, non-corporate planters and planting laborers. And apart from them, people who are included in sericulture, vermiculture and agroforestry are also included in the definition of farmer. And it also includes the tribal families and persons who are engaged in the shifting cultivation and in the collection, use and sale of minor non-timber forest produce. Fine. So all these people comes under the definition of farmer. So this statement you can use to discourage the shifting cultivation. Like if you want to quote what are the measures you can suggest to discourage the shifting cultivation or slash and burn cultivation, you can quote that the persons who are engaged in the shifting cultivation should be delisted from the definition of farmer. So that will discourage people to perform this shifting cultivation. Fine. Now let's solve the question over this topic. So this is a direct question from whatever we have discussed. So National Policy for Farmers 2007 defines farmer as agricultural operational holders, right? Gardeners, yes. Pastoralist, yes. Person engaged in shifting cultivation, yes. Non-corporate planters, yes. All of the above. So generally we overthink in the exam. In the beginning, as soon as we see this question, we consider option D itself, like the right question only. And we start thinking, beyond our limits. Like as the government want to discourage shifting cultivation, then why will the person engaged in the shifting cultivation, why will the government include or consider this person engaged in the shifting cultivation as a farmer? So we overthink in this way and we will consider, like here, luckily we don't have an option, but if we have an option like all except for, we go for that. Fine. So we will shift from the right answer to the wrong answer. So this is why many experts or many veterans of UPSC suggest that just go with your first thought. Do not overthink on a question. Yeah. So now let's move on to our next question. Our next topic is about Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. This program is to provide income support to all farmer families across the country. And definition of the family for this scheme is a husband, wife, and minor children. So these families are supported with or provided with 6,000 rupees per year, which is transferred under 3-4 monthly installments of 2,000 rupees each. The entire responsibility of identification of beneficiaries rests with state and union territory governments. So initially, this program was limited to only small and marginal farmer families. But recently, it was extended to all farmer families in the country, irrespective of size of their land holdings. As we know that, the definition of small and marginal farmers includes that people who have the cultivable land less than 2 hectares. Fine. Now, presently, this Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi is extended to all farmer families, irrespective of their land holding size. However, there are certain exceptions, which includes affluent farmers who are excluded from this scheme, such as farmers who pay the income tax in the last assessment year, professionals like doctor, engineers, lawyers, chartered accounts, etc., whose pension is at least 10,000 rupees per month, and all institutional landholders. So all these people are excluded from this program. Consider the following statements regarding Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. PM Kisan is a central sector scheme with 100% funding from the government of India. Yes, this is right. So there's a difference between central sector scheme and the central sponsored scheme. Fine, you must keep that in mind. Under this scheme, an income support of rupees 6,000 per year will be provided to all farmer families across the country with exceptions. Yes, this is right. Definition of the family for this scheme is husband, wife, and minor children. Yes, this is also right. As the question is about correct statements, our answer is option D. Let's move on to our next concept. Our next concept is about the status of sulfur dioxide emissions in India. A new report released by Greenpeace has said that India is the largest emitter of sulfur dioxide in the world, contributing more than 15% of global anthropogenic emissions. Fine. So the greater source of sulfur dioxide in India is because of burning of fossil fuels in the power plants. So the first important reason is burning of fossil fuels in the power plants. The other important reason behind this increasing sulfur dioxide emissions in India is for major plants in India lack flue gas desulfurization technology. This technology is used to reduce the air pollution. So as many of the plants in India lacks this technology, the Union Minister has come up with a provision that he introduced the limitations on sulfur dioxide, especially for thermal plants. So he set the sulfur dioxide emission limits for coal-fired power plants in December 2015. So besides these huge emissions, studies says that the sulfur content in Indian coal is hardly 0.7%. Fine, it is only lignite, which is majorly available in Tamil Nadu, has a high moisture content up to 45% and a high sulfur content. So you can consider this as a successful case study of China. China reduced their sulfur dioxide emissions through strong emission norms and implementation of technologies like FGD. India is the largest emitter of sulfur dioxide in the world, contributing more than 15% of global anthropogenic emissions. Yeah, this is actually the report of Greenpeace. The reasons for this are very high sulfur content in the Indian coal. No, as we have discussed, Indian coal consists of 0.7% of sulfur. Vast majority of thermal power plants in India lack flue gas desulfurization technology. Yes, this is right. But the question is about incorrect statements, so our answer becomes option A. Our next concept is about foreign inflows. Sectors such as services, computer software, hardware, telecommunications, trading, automobile, constructions, and chemicals attracted the FDI, as per the report of or the data provided by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. So you are supposed to just observe these facts. It does not require to rote learn all these numbers, but just make a conclusion out of this. On one side, services receive $7.85 billion of foreign inflows, whereas the construction or the automobile sectors or the chemicals, it received 2 billion, nearly less than $3 billion of foreign inflows. As in the recent years, automobile sector has experienced a very sharp decline in its growth. So you can quote that decrease in the foreign inflows is also one among the reasons behind its fall down. Fine. So yeah, the other thing is foreign direct investment into India has increased by 13% in financial year 2020. So Singapore remained the top source, like first source of FDI into India is Singapore, followed by Mauritius. And among the states, it is Maharashtra, which received the highest share of FDI of 30%, and it is followed by Karnataka and Delhi. In India, brownfield investment is nothing but the forms of mergers and acquisitions. So in India, brownfield investment is more dominant than in the world. Fine. So things you're supposed to note down is, the foreign inflows in particular sector, like the proportion, the services, the foreign inflows in services is way high when we compare that to the automobile and construction industry. And similarly, foreign direct investment has experienced a growth of 13% in financial year 2020. Singapore is the top source, followed by Mauritius. Coming to the states which are receiving the FDI, on the receiving side, Maharashtra with the share of 30% is in the first place, followed by Karnataka and Delhi. And in India, it is a brownfield investment which is more dominant than in the world. Consider the following statements regarding FDI in India in 2019-2020. Mauritius remained the top source of FDI, followed by Singapore. No, this is the other way. First is Singapore, followed by Mauritius. So statement 1 is wrong. From this, we can eliminate option A and option D. Service sector attracted maximum foreign inflows during 2019 and 2020. Yes. This is how I want you to remember that. Instead of rote learning that numbers, just deduct the conclusions from that. Which sector received the maximum inflows, which sector received the very minimum inflows and all. In India, greenfield investment is more dominant than in the world. No, it was brownfield investment. So from that, statement 3 becomes strong and our answer is option C. Our next concept is about Sowa Rigpa. So it is one of the oldest living and well-documented medical tradition popular in the world. The term Sowa Rigpa is derived from the Boti language, which means knowledge of healing. So the meaning of this Sowa Rigpa is knowledge of healing. It is an ancient Indian medical system which was enriched in the Trans-Himalayan region. So at present, this tradition or the Sowa Rigpa is more popular in the Himalayan societies of Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, West Bengal, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, and also in other countries like Bhutan, Mongolia, and Russia. Sowa Rigpa is formally recognized and promoted as traditional medicine system by Government of India. The majority of this theory and practice of Sowa Rigpa is similar to Ayurveda. So let us solve the question on a similar concept. Consider the following statements regarding Sowa Rigpa. So the question is about correct statements. It is the traditional system of medicine most practiced in the western coastal belt of India. No, as we observed, it is in Trans-Himalayan region. The majority of theory and practice of Sowa Rigpa is similar to Ayurveda. Yes, this is right. Statement 1 is wrong, statement 2 is right. It is formally recognized and promoted as a traditional medical system by the Government of India. Yes, this is true. So our statement 2 and 3 are right. So our answer is C. In other way, when we conclude that statement 1 is wrong, we can eliminate option A, B, and D. So though we are not sure about statement 2 and 3, so we by elimination method will get the answer as option C. Our next concept is about BIMSTEC, which is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, BIMSTEC. So it came into being through Bangkok Declaration, and it includes 7 member states lying in the littoral and adjacent areas of Bay of Bengal, which are Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan. The permanent secretariat is in Dhaka, Bangladesh. In 2018, the 4th BIMSTEC summit was concluded in Kathmandu, Nepal. Consider the following statements about Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, BIMSTEC. It comprises of 8 member states lying in the littoral and adjacent areas of Bay of Bengal. No, it was 7 states. It came into being through Bangkok Declaration. Yes, this is right. It is headquartered in Kathmandu, Nepal. No, it is headquartered in Dhaka, Bangladesh. In 2018, 4th BIMSTEC summit was concluded in Kathmandu. Yes, this is right. So from our discussion, we can conclude the answer as option A. In other way, as our statement 1 is wrong, from that we can eliminate option B and option C. And when the statement 3 becomes wrong, we can eliminate option D. Fine. So our answer is option A. So our next question is Arikamedu, an archaeological site recently seen in the news, is located in. So it was in the news because of increasing threat of sand mining, and it is located in Puducherry. So here are the small details regarding the same. Arikamedu is an archaeological site in southern India, which is located in Puducherry. It is under threat from sand miners, as we have discussed previously. So with this, we are done with 30 questions. So let's conclude our discussion with this, and let's continue the same in our next session. If you want to have the PDF of the same, it is available in our Telegram channel, and the link of that is provided in the description. If you like this video and if you find this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.